I feel like every single digital camera has a major flaw, and it baffles me that this is across every brand of camera. Doesn't matter what you shoot, this is going to be true. And honestly, I had forgotten that this major issue existed. It used to bug me. I had forgotten about it, but now I just got reminded of it because recently I did something that I never do. I shot a wedding. It was the first wedding that I photographed in probably 20 years. I think the last one I did was in 2005. Weddings are not part of my photography business. They're not part of anything that I enjoy. And should I ever get asked to do them, I just will refer friends of mine who do weddings. And speaking of you wedding photographers out there, man, mad respect for you guys because it is so much work. This was a small elopement and a favor to a friend, and so I just said yes. I went ahead and decided I was gonna do it. And even though I wasn't fully confident that I was gonna even do a good job or have something that I would end up being happy with, I ended up getting some photos that I think are gonna be portfolio pieces for me in my lifestyle and portrait gallery. Doing this wedding brought back all of the frustration that I have felt no matter what camera I've used on this problem, and it is the freaking menus. You see, as somebody that shoots Leica cameras, I'm really not in the menus very much. I feel like with the Leica camera, the way I use it, it was like I got it out of the box, I set it up, and I never go into the menu except to format a card. But for this wedding, I didn't shoot my Leicas. No, instead, I decided to photograph this wedding on my Sony cameras because, again, I just didn't trust myself photographing a wedding. I wanted some great autofocus and a range of lenses that I could carry a few different cameras and just, pop off what I needed to get the shots that they wanted. Now, I've been using Sony cameras since I transitioned from DSLRs to mirrorless, and so it's been several years that I've had some Sony cameras. And today, these cameras basically exist for video. You're watching this video on a Sony a7S III. This is a Sony a7R V that I use as a B camera for video, but I also use it if I need something with autofocus. I haven't used this camera for photography in well over a year. The last time I used this for photography, I was shooting a series of dresses for a company that rents high-end Indian dresses for weddings, and I had to photograph like 200 dresses on 12 models over like 2 days, and so, this was the camera to go to for that. But it had been over a year since I had really taken any photos on this camera, and prior to the a7R V, for so many years, the a7R III was my go-to camera. Today, I use it to scan film, and really that is it. But this was my go-to for, a long time. And I've taken some of my favorite photos ever with this camera. And when it was destroyed in a car accident, I actually had this camera rebuilt because it means so much to me. That's how much I love the a7R III. But when I strapped this to me for a wedding, I was using the Clever Supply double harness. I borrowed it from my friend. I had this actually on my neck on a strap. On my left side, I had the a7R V, and then I borrowed her camera on my right side. That was an a7R IV. So I used 3 cameras for this wedding. That's how nervous I was. And as I was setting up, I had to turn the camera on and dive into the menus to get these cameras set up for what I needed them to do that day. And what a mess. Even the a7R V with the newer Sony menus, and I use the word newer lightly here because that menu system came out, I think, in 2020. It's still a mess to me. It still makes no sense. All I really wanted to do was set up the cards for redundancy, get them all set to the same white balance, make sure they were all shooting at the largest capacity RAW, and make sure their shutters were all firing at a mid burst. And right there, you're probably thinking to yourself, Dave, you're an idiot. You probably could just hit the FN button and get right into those settings. And I just started thinking to myself, it is 2024, almost 2025. Why are we still living in these 1999 operating systems and menu list? Let's just take a look real quick at this Sony a7R III's menu. You can see it right here. Look at this, guys. It's a hot freaking mess. And you can't even go past anything. It just loops around. I hate this menu. I don't use that word often, but I really hate this menu. And I came over to Sony from Canon, which had better menus than this, but still just not great menus. Sony's newer menus on their newer cameras look like this. And I will admit this is somewhat of an improvement, but it's still not great. It's still like things are in weird places, and I mean, I still just I don't love it. I just feel like it's not intuitive and it's hard to move around and find things. Let's just compare it real quick to the Leica menu, because again, for me, the Leica menu was very much set it and forget it. When I go into the Leica menu, I just have basically an endless list of options, and then it's gonna loop around. And there's a lot less going on in the Leica menu than on the Sonys, but that's because the Leica camera doesn't do all of the things that the Sonys do. And if you think the Sony layout is bad, you've never used Fuji, because I've had a couple of Fuji cameras as well, and their menus I think are the worst I have ever used. And I'm probably gonna get crucified by the Fuji bros, but I cannot stand the Fuji menus. I hate that the fonts aren't even the same size throughout the menu. That makes no sense to me. And if I had to just name like what I think is the most elegant menu I've ever seen, it's what's on the X2D, it's on the Hasselblad, but I don't own that camera. I borrow it from a friend, and there are things I love about that camera and things I don't like about that camera, but I do love the menus. It's very elegant. I wish I had one here to show you, but you can Google it and look it up, or look for someone else's YouTube video because there are plenty of them. So I started thinking to myself, like, what would I recommend if a camera company came to me and said, Dave, how would you make our menus better? And I've got a few thoughts that I would love to see in future camera menus. But before that, if you've made it this far, just know I normally don't complain like this. I'm actually a really positive person and very upbeat and uplifting, I would say like 99% of the time. But right now, you're just getting one of those videos. I think it's the first video I've made all year that's kind of like a rant. But if this is your first time here, my name's Dave. This is not who I am every time, but this is who you're getting today. Thankfully, I post 2 videos a week unless something goes horribly wrong, so be sure to subscribe and stick around for more positive videos, either behind me if you want to go watch some of those, or ahead of me if I posted more videos since you saw this one. Really, the first thing I would love to see is when you boot that camera up for the first time, you can choose one of 2 views. One is like a bare bones menu that's only gonna give you like the basics of what you need. You can just toggle that and that's all you're gonna see if you scroll through your menu. And then there's like a technical menu, an advanced menu if you wanna call it that, that'll show you everything the camera can do. And you can just toggle those 2 views. And so when you don't need to make changes to like something deep in the menu, you don't even see it. You just toggle it off, you never see it. And yeah, I know I can create custom menus that do this, but I'm saying by default, like, let's just go ahead and when I boot it up, give me 2 options. When I first get my camera, do I want to see this view or that view? It's kind of like the way some pro apps will give you like a basic layout or an advanced layout. I know like Logic Pro does this, and I hate that in Logic Pro, but I would love it in a camera menu. So that'd be the first thing I would say is introduce a simple menu for people that want simple menus that don't need to change creative looks like every time you shoot. I don't even want to see that in there. The second thing I would do is I would just update the operating system to have just more visually pleasing fonts and colors. Leica Super Minimal, I love just that it's white text on a black background, and then it has that red underline as you scroll, and that's all there is to it. Love that, super simple. Don't mind the font because at least it's uniform, unlike Fuji. But Sony had to give us this weird new menu with all of these colors, and I get that they're trying to give you a quick visual for where you are in the menu, but how about just like simplify the menu so I don't need all of these colors? Better fonts, better operating system, keep the colors just super clean. Here's the big thing, okay? Every camera maker at some point put that shutter on the top right and decided to put the lens in the middle of the body. That was a decision that has been made across every camera system for many, many generations. That's my Sony. Here's a Leica M6 from the 80s. Guess what? The lens is in the middle of the body and the shutter's on the top right. You grab a Canon, a Nikon, a Fuji, Sony, it doesn't matter what you grab. That's how your camera is gonna be laid out because these were systematized things that everyone agreed upon. We're gonna do it this way. In the same way JPEG became our like point and shoot file. They're not bitmaps, they're JPEGs. They're not PNGs, they're JPEGs, because JPEGs have been systematized across every camera system. So can't we just get all of you camera developers, all of you guys watching my small channel, to just systematize the menus, make it so that we can go between a Sony or a Canon or a Hasselblad or a Leica and just get a systematized experience, the way the folders are organized, the way things are laid out, just like a systematized and agreed upon system of operations on how we're gonna do menus. Wouldn't that just be the most amazing thing for the consumer? I'm looking at you, European Union, because you guys tend to get things done for the consumer. You brought us USB-C in the iPhone. So perhaps it's time for the European Union to step in and make camera makers, for the consumer, fix their menus. And I'm gonna close with this thought. If you're getting triggered right now, or maybe think I'm an idiot, that's okay. You're free to think that all you want, and maybe I am. However, I think people that are okay with camera menus are okay because they have the muscle memory, not because the menu's been well designed. Like if you've got the muscle memory and you can quickly navigate your menus because you've studied up on them, you know where everything is and you've done it a bunch, you're probably watching this video and saying, wow, this guy just is inexperienced with menus or whatever. And you know, maybe I am, but it's your muscle memory that's making you say that, not the intuitiveness of the design, which is what I'm talking about. I think the designs and all these menus just kind of sucks. So I hope you enjoyed this video from my grouchy ass today. Thank you for watching this long and sticking it out. I'll see you guys next time, hopefully with a more positive video next time.